Welcome back, readers. Yesterday, we were talking about how powerful nonfiction readers choose to be fascinated. And while they're reading, they think to themselves, wow, I never knew. That's weird. And sometimes they ask themselves why. I'm going to reread a part of Mummies from yesterday, and we're going to practice the same work. A farmer is working in swampy land. His shovel hits something hard. He uncovers a blackened body. It has hair, teeth, even fingerprints. The farmer calls the police. It looks like the person died recently, but the body is over 2,000 years old. It's a mummy. Wow, I never knew that mummies still had hair, teeth, and fingerprints. And I think that it's weird that there was just a body in swampy land. Why was it there? Do you see how I did that, readers? I stopped, I chose to be fascinated, and I asked myself questions as I read. That was our first strategy of our unit that we've practiced. And today we are going to try something new. In session 2, we are going to be talking about how readers notice details and how they ask questions. So we talked about yesterday how the details in our book are fascinating and we want to be fascinated as we're reading, but they're not just fascinating. It could also help us learn something. So when we're reading nonfiction texts, those fascinating questions and details, they should be leading us to new ideas and to new learning. Let me give you an example. I was reading a book about the solar system, and a fascinating fact that I came across was that about 1 million Earths could fit inside the sun. And that was something that I never knew. But it's not enough just to take time to notice those facts. I also need to stop and ask myself, what am I learning? And what I learned here was that the sun is actually so much bigger than I had imagined. I never imagined that 1 million of Earth, or that sounded funny, 1 million Earths could actually fit inside the sun. So today I want to teach you that readers of nonfiction books ask themselves, what did I notice? As they study the details. And as they continue to read on and learn more and more facts, they stop and they ask themselves, what am I learning? And they think about these questions in order to grow knowledge on a topic. And I know a lot of readers of nonfiction, myself included. Sometimes nonfiction readers have a tendency to read a nonfiction book from start to finish or just write down random facts. But then at the end, you don't really know what you read. So as a powerful nonfiction reader, we are going to stop and continue to ask ourselves, what do we notice? And what is it that we're actually learning? So in order to do brainy work, we need to pay attention to specific details. And there's two things that we can ask ourselves. We can ask ourselves, what is it that we notice? And we can also ask ourselves, what am I learning? So I'm going to read pages 6 to 7 of Mummies, and I'm going to stop every so often to ask myself, what is it that I'm noticing? And what is it that I'm learning overall? When something dies, it decays. Insects, wild animals, and bacteria eat parts of the body. A mummy is a dead body that doesn't decay. I'm not quite sure I know what the word decay means, but I'm noticing that a mummy doesn't decay. But when something dies, it does decay, and that there's insects and other things eating. So maybe decay means something that is breaking down or disappearing, and maybe a mummy is more preserved, and that's why it has more features like those fingernails that we read about. A mummy can be made in two ways. People can use bacteria killing chemicals to make mummies, or If a body is in the right place at the right time, it can also become a mummy naturally. In those places, any dead body might become a mummy. So if I stop and think about what I'm learning here, I'm learning a couple things. Number one, when normal things die, they decay, they break down, they disintegrate, they disappear. But a mummy use bacteria killing chemicals to preserve mummies so that they don't decay. So the whole point of a mummy is a body that's not being broken down, it's being preserved. But I'm also learning that sometimes mummies aren't purposely made. Sometimes they just happen to be at a place where they're not going to decay because there's no bacteria eating at that body. So something else that readers do is they flag their text with codes. So they stop and ask themselves, they might draw a question mark and write down something that they're wondering. So for example, I might be wondering, why do people make mummies? What's the point? Why are they using those bacteria to preserve those people? They might use an exclamation point, which stands for a surprising or interesting fact. I think something that's surprising or interesting is that not all mummies are made on purpose. Sometimes it's just on accident based on where they're at. Also, based on what you're learning, readers might draw a light bulb when they come up with their own idea as they're gathering information. An idea that I came up with is maybe people make mummies because they want to preserve what people look like and preserve their features of important people or famous people or people that, were their rulers. My favorite thing on this page, and strong readers of nonfiction might draw a heart by their favorite, are those pictures that really show us the difference between a body that's decaying on the left and a mummy's body that is being preserved. And then sometimes strong nonfiction readers will star something and they'll write down something that they thought was important. And I thought it was important to know that bodies that aren't preserved, those are just normal bodies that decay. And the whole point of a mummy is that those are bodies that aren't decaying, and that there's two ways to make mummies. So readers, we just added another strategy to our charts. We yesterday talked about how we choose to be fascinated when we're reading by thinking to ourselves, wow, I never knew this fact, or this is really weird, or asking ourselves why. And today we learned how to read nonfiction intensely by saying to ourselves, I'm noticing, and based on what I'm noticing, this is what I'm learning. So today, as you are working on your own, you are going to finish your work from yesterday, and then you are going to start on your work today. So as you're reading your nonfiction books, I want you to note things that you are learning. In your nonfiction books, I want you to note something that you're wondering, note a surprising or interesting fact, note an idea that you have, note a favorite part, note something that's important. If you are working from home, you may log onto Epic and choose a nonfiction book on there to complete this activity.